Okay, we should be good to go. We'll move this chair, move the table, the chair, more. Okay. Cool. Hello, everybody. We're back. Let me check out our audio real quick. Just a quick check. This is why we check the audio because because yeah, it put the wrong one in. Yeah, okay. There we go. Much better. All right, let me actually also take that and put some links to it and everything. See, I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to take the camera's audio first and not this. So I'm like, let me double check that because it likes to be very picky. Let's make some announcements about this. Uh, Maybe we don't have to do the announcement on YouTube because I guess people would have notifications if they really want it. We'll do it on Twitter though. Twitter is the big one. Uh, put it here. Actually, I can just have it in the clipboard. Taking this. Time for some more Arc 9 reading, finally. Yippee! Oh, I didn't mean to open my, like, Windows keyboard thing. That should be good. Boom. Alrighty. Cool. That's all good. And then I'm just gonna put it on my phone. Just so we have it. Right, I have the chat open then. That works out well. I will try. I'll have to figure out how to do this because I wanna. I guess that's how I'll do it. Because I'm charging my phone, but at the same time, I want to have it back. Alrighty, we are back. It took a week. Apologies about that, peeps. But I felt like having a bit of a break. I finished Act Two on the weekend, like I mentioned. Right, that was completely done. Well, not finished Act Two. I keep saying this shit. I finished uh the first phase slash volume of Act Two, so that is done. Right, we don't have to worry about that anymore. That means I can finish up the last few things of that, and then we'll have the rest of it, or like the rest of like the video stuff, for example, is more so what I mean. All being worked on here. I hope that the audio here isn't too bad. I obviously have noise reduction on and everything like usual, but I do have my fan on because we're reaching that point where it's getting warm. So I do have the fan on, and therefore I'm hoping it doesn't come directly into the mic. But if it does, it's a little unfortunate. I can try and see if I have a workaround for that. Maybe I lower the setting on it. Who knows? But I think for now we're all right based on the audio I was checking. Could be wrong. Other than that, though, yeah. So we are back properly for video stuff and everything now that the first phase of Act Two is finished. I am so excited to actually get to show that off, and especially the teasers. I look back at the teasers again, like because obviously I'm like working on the final bits and pieces here and there. But I was looking at them again. I'm like, man, I do actually really like these. Like, I was worried about my drawings and stuff like that because of my sketches. You should never base your own like opinion on your drawings based on sketches. I mean, sketches are nice by all means, but that shouldn't be your immediate go-to. Uh, but like looking at the proper drawings I was doing for Act Two, I'm like, man, I'm excited. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be real good. Uh, but yeah, we're back properly. Everything. We have all the stuff set up like usual. We're gonna keep it probably to one chapter today, just because it is a bit late. Uh, and I started later than I intended because I was gonna do like 5:15, and it was like essentially like 5:40 by the time we started here, something around that, right? Got a little carried away with time. Uh, Honestly, I've been taking up some reading of comics mainly because of shit like Rivals and everything, as obvious from the like previous review we did and everything that like that's kind of been like the big addicted or addicting, I guess, sort of game right now for me. Uh, so, there's that. But I've been taking up some of the comics. They've been fun so far. But then I was reading one of the Venom ones, and I'm like, man, I'm having a really great time with this. And I got so focused on reading it. Then I'm like, shit, right, we have a live reading to do. And I like got up and I'm like, okay, right, time to, properly do all that. Oh, I just realized my drawing tablet boxes and everything are in the background. It's a little unpleasant looking to have it there, but because I actually have it out right now. I've been, working on the Act 2 pieces like I mentioned, but we can, you know what? We can fix that. Let's just move that to the side. Oh yeah, I almost forgot the biggest change that some people might notice. I don't know how I forgot this. I was literally gonna start the stream by being like, I'm bald now. Uh, the cut. I don't know. I felt like bringing attention to it just because it's like it hasn't been that long since we streamed. It's been like a week. And just out of nowhere, I now have shorter hair. It's like, oh, that's the big surprise, which happens at any point. I don't know why I'm making that big of a deal of it, but yeah. Is it strange for me to say that the water this time, maybe just because of how hot it is, but the water this time is very, very refreshing. I've always had it on cold, right, in terms of just like how it's, but I don't know. It's weirdly refreshing this time. Okay, with all that said though, let's not waste too much time. So yeah, we're gonna do one chapter today. Let me make sure it's all working here. Yup. All right, sick. So yeah, we're gonna do one chapter. Nothing too huge, but we're gonna keep it simple for now. Honestly, what I am thinking I could do, uh, what I could do? I never considered this before. I don't think this fucks with OBS at all. If I do this, ooh, that's not perfect. I wanted to kind of have it on the side. My main issue is that it gets rid of the chat. See, what I don't like about this, because I use Streamlabs for this, I don't like that it has a sidebar on the left, and I can't get rid of that. But if I shrink it, it gets rid of the sidebar on the right. That's the like chat essentially. That's kind of fucked up, isn't it? Like that's a little messed up that I can't even get rid of the like here's the random widgets sort of sidebar. I have to. That's weird. I don't like that. That is really strange, and I can't like do anything to. The only thing I can do is actually make it larger. That's like fucked. Damn. All right. Well, we're just gonna have to work with this. This is just how it'll be. Unfortunate, but we deal. All right. So we have one chapter. I already checked the word count way ahead of time. It's 7,000 words, so that'll be about an hour and a half. Not too long of a stream, but it'll still be a relatively decent stream. Not bad, right? And then yeah. So the nice thing is, even if we're only doing one chapter, let me open up the WCT into a larger view. We go all the way down here. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna try and not look at, okay, it doesn't seem like there's too many words here that could be, or not words, but like titles here that could be a problem. At least based on what I'm seeing, I could be wrong. So we're on Words of a Child. We have three more. So, and obviously there's some that aren't translated yet, but we have three more, and we're on Words of a Child. So the good news with that is even if we only do one today, that means I mentioned this earlier on the channel and on Twitter. That pretty much means that so Monday, I'm gonna take a break. Like every other day, I'm gonna take a break, right? So we're doing a stream today. Monday, we're not streaming. Tuesday, we will stream, right? I'm gonna try and do two chapters, right? that will cover what we just saw there of, man, I gotta pull it up again. Uh, that will cover the next two, right? This foot of the table, cool. All right, and then obviously there might be more chapters like releasing between then. You know, we'll see. There could even be more tonight. Who knows, right? I don't know the schedule of that. Right? I don't know how the progress of it is or whatever it might be. Um, but uh, so those two probably on Tuesday. Boom, great, right? As long as they're not like too absurdly long. But even then, if we start earlier, we're just fine for that, right? Cool. Uh, that means then that Wednesday, no stream, right? Thursday. Thursday we can stream. It's tricky. Okay. So I have to go somewhere Thursday. I can stream, but I have to choose one of two times. I either have to choose the very, like, around here, like end of the day, whatever it may be, like 6 or 7 p.m., something like that. Not the worst, right? Or we do it early. We do it at like 12 or 1, right? I don't have a problem with either. I'm just saying it's probably one of those, right? Friday, I literally cannot, right? Friday is like an absolutely not. I'm literally going somewhere I cannot, right? Then Saturday, if there are chapters out, by all means, we will do them, right? So we will have a lot of time to actually cover all sorts of like content and everything here, which is great, right? It means this week is going to be super filled with all sorts of reading and everything. It'll be jam packed. It'll be great. We can stay on top of this. It's perfect, right? Uh, Other than that, I mean, our breaks in between are going to be me probably drawing the teasers and stuff like that for Act 2, right? Getting all that ready. And then obviously the cover. And when we do the cover, I will say, I think I might have mentioned this last stream. When we do the cover, it will be very obvious on who the new main character is because you guys are going to see the new main character with the cover. It'll be obvious on who it is, but we'll get there when we get there. That said, though, again, this week going to be very good for getting some just chapter content out. And I get to read a whole bunch. It'll be nice. Hopefully, I don't tire myself out too much with this stuff because this stuff, it can be tiring. It can be tiring to like talk this much in front of the camera and just be like, oh, okay, I just read a whole ass long ReZero chapter and ooh, like it's the same comment that my close pal Brandon mentions whenever he checks my chapters of similar to my chapters, right? These could be like split up between their breaks and just be their own separate chapters normally, right? But Tepe writes a lot, I write a lot, and as a result, both just get to have really long chapters in there. That's how it is. So we make do. All right. With that said, I think we're ready to start. I do like this art. This is the art that I did see on Twitter, unfortunately, prior to the previous chapter. So I already knew what was happening over. Well, not knew what was happening, but I knew he was there. It's unfortunate, but it is cool art. We will definitely go and like that after we are done. Okie dokie. I think we are good to go. So, with that said, let's begin. Actually, hold on. One thing. I just want to turn my phone on silent. Just gonna do that. All good. All right. Stream Deck kind of want to point towards me a little bit just in case. Right. All right. I think we are now ready. Let me actually double check that. Okay, I wanted to make sure all my buttons were working. Okay. For real this time. Let's go. With a we're off to a great start. With a cross-shaped swing, the twin swords carved a decisive wound into their opponent. Bleeding from countless shallow wounds that covered his entire body, Wilhelm was unable to hide his frustration at his own poor sword skills. Weak. What poured out from behind his clenched teeth was disappointment and frustration toward his aging and worn-out self. As time passed and he grew old, He felt so ashamed of his own inadequacy that he had wanted to hide his face. If he had if he had been a poet or an artist, the accumulated years would have become knowledge and skill, and his words and brushstrokes would have become more refined, reaching heights he could never have achieved in his youth. However, that was not the case for the swordsman. The passage of time that made him feel his age, and had only intensified his passion, leaving him with no excuses. His strength, skill, and speed were nothing compared to when he was at his peak, and that was simply frustrating. He had experienced the same frustration many times before, even when he decided to withdraw from the front lines and retire from active duty as the captain of the Royal Guard. Even when his wife was lost to the White Whale, and he had spent 14 years seeking revenge, only then did he realize that he had no choice but to face his sworn enemy with weakened sword skills. The unbearable frustration that now consumed Wilhelm was unparalleled by anything he had yet experienced in his life, equal to only to the moment he first learned that Teresia was the sword saint during the demi-human war, when he realized he was no match for her. Weak. Far too weak. Scroll down. In a world where strength was valued above all else, that weakness was an unforgivable sin. In this world, petty excuses did not work. Being strong or weak, those were the only factors. Talent, slothfulness, illness, old age, none held meaning once one stepped onto the stage where strength is pitted against strength. After all, a sword cannot choose its wielder. Then, it was only natural that those who wielded swords had no excuse. No, in this world, there was a sword that chose its wielders. Hence why, the one chosen by the sword and stood atop a world without excuses. Or the one chosen by that, sorry. That was precisely why Wilhelm Trias. I keep fucking saying that every time we, like, say his name. Uh, Wilhelm Trias, uh, who could not, who could not use his advancing age and declining condition as an excuse, had to defeat the I'm still laughing at Trias. This opponent with his own hands at any cost. Quick drink. Let me take a drink to refresh myself on that. It's a blunder I keep making to myself, and I'll accept it. Seriously, it's fucking refreshing this time. I don't know why. I feel like it has to be the heat. Regardless of Wilhelm's self-assessment, the battle where he demonstrated his most formidable swordsmanship in decades came to an end. The formidable shinobi was defeated. Among all shinobi Wilhelm had faced, she was undoubtedly the most skilled. It was impossible to imagine how much training the girl had undergone to reach such heights, but there were no consolation prizes in the world of combat. That was the cruelest aspect of the way of the sword. Even if one loved the sword above all else, whether or not the sword reciprocated that love had nothing to do with the depth or magnitude of their love. Instead, the deeper and the greater the love was, the more the heart would crack and break irreparably when that love was not reciprocated. That was a bit of a tongue twister at the end. With that sentiment in the back of his mind, Wilhelm remained vigilant, even though the outcome had already been decided. A bit further. The distance, the body of the fallen girl caught his attention, hanging in midair upon a single thread. Blood dripped down her upturned body, but her thin torso was not severed. That was the reason for his caution. In such a life or death battle, there was no room for mercy. Wilhelm gave no consideration whatsoever to his opponent's age, gender, or circumstances. He swung his sword with the intention of taking her life. Of this there was no doubt. And yet, the fact that the girl's body was not sliced into demonstrated not only Wilhelm's lack of skill with the sword, but also that the girl had somehow avoided a fatal blow. The most likely reason being, threads, is it? Using all of her fingers and toes, the girl had weaved threads that extended into the hole that led to the bottom of the underground chamber. In order to wield them freely, one would need rare talent and painstaking training. This technique could be used as a blade to cut through opponents, or as chains to restrain enemy movements. When wrapped tightly around the body, it could even serve as armor to protect against sword strikes. As the final blow was about to be delivered, the girl made a move to protect her neck and heart. Wilhelm slashed at her exposed torso with all of his might. Such was her momentary evasive maneuver. With her split-second judgment, the girl had managed to keep a glimmer of hope alive. He had nothing but respect for her. Although he remained vigilant, Wilhelm also wanted the girl to survive. This was because it was common opinion among his allies that it would be preferable to capture her alive if possible. Oh, oh wait, that was her. Oh, I don't know why I had to redo it. It was just an a faint moan escaped from the suspended girl's thin throat. Wilhelm was about to approach the girl by positioning himself, thrusting his sword into the wall, sensing his presence. Wilhelm was about to approach the girl by positioning himself. Yeah, thrusting into the wall. Sensing. That was a different sentence. I see. I see where I went wrong there. Sensing his presence, the girl's trembling eyelids opened, and her red eyes reflected Wilhelm. Wilhelm remained on guard in response. However, he was certain that from the feeling of his sword that it was impossible to counterattack from that position. He had wielded the sword for 50 years now, and during that time, he had danced with death in countless life-risking battles and reaped the lives of numerous opponents. All the past experiences of bloodshed, taken lives, were telling Wilhelm the exact depth of the wounds he had inflicted on his opponent. Therefore, no matter how much the girl tried to hint with her deceitful gaze at still having some kind of trump card up her sleeve, Wilhelm saw through it as a desperate bluff it was, and did not stop his ceaseless approach. I do not know the details of the situation either, but it would be best for you to stop resisting and us not to fight any longer. Soon, Aldono shall be held in custody too. Seeing through her bluff, Wilhelm attempted to stop the girl from pointlessly resisting any further. That girl was one of the individuals who had conspired with Priscilla Burial's knight, Al, or so Wilhelm had heard. He could only speculate that the tragic and unfortunate loss of Priscilla's life in the Wallachian Empire may have been the catalyst that had driven Al to commit these crimes. Wilhelm understood all too well what Al, someone who had just lost a loved one, was currently feeling. It must have felt like his body had been mutilated, his heart torn apart, and his soul feeling as if he was burning endlessly with unfathomable sense of powerlessness. However, the world could not be allowed to be destroyed purely because of those negative emotions. Moreover, it was impossible to overlook the fact that one of Wilhelm's benefactors was among the victims of this rampage. Al's plots must be averted. Quick drink. Curious as to where this is going to go, because this is leading into a thing that might be... This might not work out for Wilhelm, you know what I mean? Okie dokie. Said that twice so far. Check the stream's all good. Just because you've been having issues every now and then. It's alright. This was I'm gonna move my mouse. It was tantamount to surpassing all who were complicit in the scheme, cooperating with Al for whatever reason. The same applied to the other conspirators, no matter who or what they were. The shinobi girl was merely one of the cogs that needed to be removed from the machine. This is the worst. These words were uttered in the weak, faint breaths of someone barely clinging on to life. The girl, suspended in the air, seemed to realize that her bluff had not worked on Wilhelm, and could not hide her immense disappointment in herself. Ooh, excuse me. That was, I can't believe I'm dragging you down like this. If she had not been suspended in midair, her deep remorse might have even been accompanied by actual tears. If that remorse had only been based on the outcome of the battle with Wilhelm, Wilhelm might have finally let down his last shred of caution. However, he did not. Immediately after the girl's muttering, a sound was heard. Overhead, from outside the hole, there was a heavy thud, like something falling to the floor. Following that, Grr, arg. Hearing a sudden cry of pain and realizing it was Felt, whom he had left in the room above, Wilhelm kicked off the wall and jumped up, using the sword that he had stuck into its structure for support. Wilhelm performed a triple jump, oh my lord, and leaped out of the hole, his eyes wide open in frantic hurry. Oop. Floating in the air was Felt, frantically kicking her legs, desperately clawing at her neck. With her finger. Oh, she's making her hang. She was hanging in midair from a thread around her neck. However, the girl who orchestrated this most likely did not have the energy left to do so. Then, Wilhelm saw the part of the wall that had collapsed in the corner of the room, and realized it had been the source of the sound he had heard earlier, the mechanism that was now keeping Felt suspended. A thread that had been attached to Felt's neck. When the wall, which had been cut at an angle in advance, collapsed at an appointed time, the thread was pulled, leaving her hanging in midair. This way, no matter how the battle progressed, regardless of whether the girl lived or died, the trap would have been activated and Felt would be dangling in the air. I will help you now, Wilhelm was about to say, running over to Felt with a sword in hand. The thread was strong, but without its user, its strength could not surpass a sword strike. Rescuing Felt was simple, and the girl who set the trap could not possibly escape. Originally, her purpose in setting up the time trap must have been to distract Wilhelm from herself in the event of a prolonged battle, to catch him by surprise, or to allow for a quick escape. However, the battle had been decided before the trap ever had the chance to be set off. The girl was too severely injured to make an escape. The trap gave her no opportunity for a surprise attack, or time to escape. Either way, Felt, who had gotten the brunt of the surprise attack, was still being hanged, or so Wilhelm thought. At this point, Wilhelm's train of thought was natural, and no one could blame him. After all, at that point, the only people who truly understood the significance of Helt's hanging, were those who were the source of the threat to the kingdom. It was just, I can't believe I'm dragging you down like this. If there had been time to fathom the true meaning behind the remorseful words of the girl hanging in midair, things might have been different. The girl's regret was not in her defeat itself, but what came after. What she regretted was not her defeat, but the insurance that followed. In a way, just before Wilhelm's sword strike cut the thread, Felt, who was being hanged, was desperately trying to make some sort of appeal with a hoarse breath. It was not a plea for help, it was a plea for him to run away. Immediately after, Wilhelm's eyes caught sight of it. The giant arm of the dragon effortlessly smashed through the wall of the burial manor and mercilessly struck Wilhelm from the side. Oh! Oh, shit. Okay, wait. This is... I just realized I have headphones on. I didn't need these. I did this once again. I mean, okay, I needed them at the start. That's why I had them on. But I realize now I didn't need them. Let's get rid of that. Actually, oh, maybe we shouldn't. You know, I unplugged that. Maybe I shouldn't unplug them just yet. My bad. I hope that doesn't fuck with things too much. It's the USB device that is probably correct. I hope so. So, all right. That's interesting. Okay, hold on. Drink first. So, interesting thing about that. Obviously, it's not full control. Okay, I have some theories here. So, the obvious thing I want to point out is, like the whole thing. Oh, thanks. You too, man. Um, Oof. Okay, so the obvious thing I'm thinking here is the dragon, right? Uh, him attacking Wilhelm is a very interesting point to make because the obvious thing you could draw a connection to is Felt herself, right? And we've seen Felt in the previous volume where the dragon was in this weird state because it's both like Al and then the actual dragon, right? So now it's an interesting thing of, oh, it's attacking Wilhelm despite Felt being there. Now I have a theory as to why this is, right? I have a feeling like I know why this was Ye's sort of insurance. And it's not the fact that, oh, the dragon can just cooperate with her and attack Wilhelm, right? Because that seems a little silly, right? It could have done that at any point. What that says to me is what Ye is doing. Because essentially, she's making Felt hang, right? But it's not necessarily like a, oh, Felt is hanging and that's the end of that, right? That's the end of the plan. It's essentially because she is being injured, because she is in this, in between of life and death here, that kind of sends the the snap to the dragon to like go protect, right? But as a result, Wilhelm jumping up to go strike it is something that Ye would also expect, right? Because it works as double, right? It distracts Wilhelm and makes him think, oh, I gotta go protect her. But it's also a thing of because Felt is in danger, whoever is the nearest person might get hit. Now, Ye could still get hit later on, right? Just because. Who knows, right? But I think it's just the dragon attacking to free Felt and then whoever's trying to injure her. And that's where the sword strike comes in because it's like, well, it sees that as an attack rather than, a proper sort of like rescue option, right? It doesn't see him as being like this hero who's trying to save Felt. It sees him as an enemy. That's how I'm viewing it right now. We'll see if there's like more to that, of course. But alrighty. We actually I I don't know how far down this goes. I'm gonna scroll down. I'm curious. I know where we're at. I'm just curious on how far this goes on my scroll bar. Okay, it goes pretty far down. I kind of guessed that, I figured, but I was just like, I don't fully know because sometimes it only goes halfway and I'm like, there's no way we read half already, right? It's just a like really long one we can scroll by, but okay. It's relatively the same in length. Good to note. Okay. Ooh, I'm excited for more. This is good. This is good. Again, this is the shit that gets me excited with Arc 9. Alright. Get back into it. Let's feel that energy. Let's get that pump in. Alright. To infiltrate the royal capital of Lagunica and release the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, held captive in the prison tower. When Aldebaran revealed that utterly preposterous, batshit insane course of action before promptly entering the city of his own, or on his own, of his own. Yep, it's his now. On his own, Heinkel harbored some complex reservations. The root of Aldebaran's objective. This had not been shared with Heinkel. He seemed to possess a similar amount of information as the obedient Ye, but unlike Heinkel, who sought recompense it's hard to tell when there's a dash sometimes. Recompense for assisting Aldebaran. The reason behind Ye's participation in these plans seemed to stem from a distorted obsession regarding Aldebaran. A distorted obsession, huh? How could anyone declare that so shamelessly? Neither love nor hatred, the emotions Ye bore Aldebaran were enigmatic. When he measured himself against that, Heinkel derided himself in a terribly bleak manner. To begin with, through my like brain's all messed. To begin with, through what means could one even measure whether something was straight or distorted? If Ye's obsession was to be evaluated as distorted, then what about his? What about Heinkel's obsession, which had reduced him to a traitor in pursuit of the means to awaken his ever slumbering wife? A solidarity? No, that is not what that says. I don't even know what word I even said. What the fuck is that? That, I thought there was like a D and like I thought it was like solid and then Quasi or something. Uh, a soliloquy? Alright. Tinged with self-condemnation or self-condemnation. It is messed with my entire head. And derision as it triggered the outbreak of a fissuring headache. Heiko pressed a finger into his temple, attempting to mask the pain. This is what's like tough sometimes when like to pay. I think that is something I would like to point out, something because I mentioned it last stream. It is a tough thing with Tepe's writing, where it's like the guy is super smart with all these like with everything he can use, right? But sometimes he throws words at you that you're like, what the fuck am I reading, right? Like I was reading. Hold on. I mentioned at the start that I was reading some comic stuff, right? And this is similar in a way to what I was reading with some of the Doctor Strange comics because I was interested in that, right? It was him, it was Venom, and it was like magic and all that. That were like the big ones for me that I wanted to learn more about, right? Um, but like with the Doctor Strange comics, there is occasional moments where Strange himself will speak in very like the verbose sort of ways and like having all sorts of just different words you've met like you may have never even heard before, but it's like it's an interesting sort of means to like talk about like, oh, maybe somebody who is like very deceitful but like good at it, right? And all this sort of stuff and all that, like it is really well done, right? But it's the interesting balance of Strange does that in those comics, and then nobody else does, right? Everybody else speaks in a general sort of plain manner. Maybe not plain, but you know what I mean. Like Dormammu can show up and he'll speak in a similar manner, but he speaks in a holier than thou sort of way rather than this very sophisticated sort of like like that sort of thing, right? So in that sense, that's how Tepe's writing is sometimes, but it is the tough thing of there is no balance between a character and a different character here in that regard. It is just the text. That is just how it is, right? And I do like that it does that. It makes it very interesting. I just also think that can be tough for some people sometimes, just because it's like, you might be throwing people off and then they gotta go on the internet. And it's like, okay, let me look up what this is. It's not the worst to do that by all means, but people might not keep track of that sort of thing, right? Like, I kept track of it in a sense with like the Doctor Strange comics because I was reading through them and it was really interesting of like, oh, him talking in this way just because of how charming his character can be. It's a thing of like, oh, I'm actually keeping track of what's being said, right? Whereas, you get slapped with something here and it's like, well, I can look it up, but it throws me off more than it does like, oh, like the scenario going on leads into that, right? I think that's the big thing for me. I think if the scenario that's going on leads into it in a good way, right, you keep your viewer or your reader rather like enticed in all this, by all means they will keep track of that. But that's always the thing, right? You always have to hook them. So when it's a more simple scene like this where it's just Heinkel talking, it might not work out too well. You know what I mean? I know I'm making a big thing out of this, but it's like it's something I want to point out of like I think there are certain aspects to writing with this sort of thing where it's like having a lot of different words and all this sort of stuff in there can work really well. It just depends on the scenario, right? One more drink because I was talking a lot there, but I think I've gotten my point across pretty well. I don't know why I was doing that with two hands. I got my like hands stuck between this. And I was just like, okay, time to do two hands. I was like trying to switch hand, like in between in the middle of the air. Wasn't working out all too well. Alrighty. Normally, the best remedy for this pain, akin to a fog that gave no answers, was alcohol. Though it would not alleviate the pain, alcohol would numb him, allowing him to temporarily forget about it. Though he knew it to be unhealthy, Heinkel could not so much as open his eyes to see things properly unless he was swimming amidst the intoxication of alcohol. And yet, right now, he could not afford to drink, to seek the intoxication to mask the pain. At long last, the time might finally be upon him. After nearly 20 years of pursuit, time for the dearest wish he had longed for, coveting to the point of fissuring his very soul, was upon him. Luana. On the backs, on the backs of his closed eyelids, as a lift spun the name of a lovely woman, her visage emerged, just the same just the same as the day he met her. The form of his youthful, sweet, lovely wife had not changed in the slightest since the year she had begun to slumber. This was not because of a lack of forming any new memories. Her sleeping visage had truly disregarded all passage of time, continuing to be as it always had been. Yeah, I looked ahead a little bit because I'm like, is this implying that she's awake? But no. Um, he wished to see her eyes. Uh, he wished to see her open her eyes again, spinning words with her lips, with nary an inhibition, in contrast to her pretty appearance. Unable to sit still for even a second, he wished to burn her lively way of being into his consciousness. As long as that came true, Heiko's life could end without desiring anything further. I'm old man, or I assume this boy, or no, this is the Divine Dragon. Old man, you being negative again? You're giving off that sort of vibe, you know. At the sudden voice from right under him, Heinkel's breath caught. As Heinkel continued to bore into his temple, the Divine Dragon called out to him like so as it spread its wings. Contrary to its grand and mighty presence, the Divine Dragon spoke in an exceedingly frivolous manner, and despite not even being able to see Heinkel riding upon his back, it still perceptibly picked up on his subtleties. At a question that could not be classified as concern from the Divine Dragon, Heinkel was at a loss for an answer. That was a matter of course. After all, for Heinkel, being left alone with just the Divine Dragon like this was something akin to the Flying Dragon or Water Dragon having their favorite food dangled before their snout. Or to A, sorry. In order to wake up the slumbering Luana Astrea, Heinkel had searched through all sorts of methods, magic and cursed arts, meteors and I guess it's magic creation. It's just like an interesting like in between of the word that I never realized before. Magic creation tools. He had tried everything, with each and every one of those hopes severed. Hanko's final ray of hope was dragon's blood. With that great treasure, said to cure every disease and bring about bountiful harvests to even the most barren of lands, he would awaken Luana. And right now, the heart fueled by that very treasure was asserting its presence, beating in a place so close that Heinkel could draw his sword and reach it. But then again, you know, something I want to mention before I actually talk about his words here. I am curious on the proof of the dragon's blood. I'm not doubting what it can do, right? But there is something interesting to point out here, and it's how much it is built up, right? Because it very well could do everything it's describing with him and like all that sort of shit, right? But we've also seen, and I am not saying this as a fact, right? But we've also seen Capella and how her blood reacts to other people, right? And it's like, yeah, obviously that involves witch factor sort of stuff, right? We know that much with how it reacts to Subaru and all this. Like, part of that is the curse stuff by all means, right? Like from the Olgarms. But like, part of that is very clearly a witch factor sort of thing. So that much makes sense. But at the same time, let's imagine her words fully truthful here, right? The implication of that being fully dragon's blood and all this sort of shit, and maybe there's a tinge of the witch factor stuff in there. In that scenario, there is a potential chance that this does not work out correctly, right? I'm not saying, Heinkel's wife ends up completely in pain, but I'm mentioning this as a fact of like, perhaps it doesn't even wake her up, right? By all means, it very well could. I'm not doubting the idea that it could. But I'm just saying it's like, this is an interesting thing where the characters are placing their hopes on, Dragon Blood and what it's capable of and all this. Like, even with the events of Arc 5, they were kind of doing that a little bit. And it's just like, something tells me, maybe not like necessarily that aspect of Arc 5, but you know what I mean, right? Like just the dragon in general, right? Like the divine dragon in general. Um, it's kind of this interesting thing of it might not even work out how these characters want it to. Whether it's what the dragon can help them with, or this blood, or whatever it may be. It's like this might not be what we're thinking here, right? And Tepe has done a good job at hitting us with that sort of shit, like a lot in the past. There's a chance that it's the same thing here, right? Just throwing that out there because it gets brought up, of course, with this, but just Heinkel's character in general. I feel like that's important to note. I am also going to take this time to take a quick bathroom break. So, 2 minutes or so. Just give me a little bit. We will be right back. Yeah. Guys, I hate to say it, but I didn't take a couple minutes. I took a few minutes. No. I was also gonna make another joke when I came back. Uh, I mean, I feel like I was talking about like rivals and all that sort of shit enough, or like early on in the stream, and I was gonna be like, pro tip gamers, when you take a piss, try to like say a fucking Marvel Rivals Ultimate quote before then, and I was having a fucking giggle to myself, imagining like every single quote. But I'm also like just fucking 5 years old for finding humor in that. All right. Regardless of my immature manners and all that sort of shit, let's get right back to it. All right. Leave it be. It doesn't. Don't concern yourself with me. Said to stop having such sulky reactions, old man. I get that you want to hurry, and how frustrating it must be for you to be alone with me. That's why I intended to properly put on brakes for you, old man, as my own sort of consideration. Consideration, you say? Don't tell me that's what you think this is supposed to be. I did intend on telling you that that's what I thought this was, but I guess saying it'd be no good. Thought a hint of ill will what the divine dragon's seemingly puzzled words were referring to was none other than the current location of itself and Heinkel, not being far from the land, high above the clouds. Riding on the divine dragon's back, Heinkel was present in the high altitudes of the Aether. Oh wait, so they're in the air. The implication beforehand with the previous chapters was that they were kind of just around, like Heinkel was keeping an eye on the dragon, but not that. Interesting. Okay. Perhaps because the divine dragon was controlling the wind, he was exposed to no shaking or strong gales, and excluding the stiffness of the scales, it was a comfortable environment. But the consideration the divine dragon was speaking of, it likely had nothing to do with this comfort. Rather, for the unlikely chance that Heinkel drew blade, it was regarding the maintenance of this high altitude permitting no salvation. Even if you were able to gouge out my heart and obtain my heart's blood, it'd be meaningless since we'd both plummet to our depths. Hence, even if we're left alone, you can't lay a hand on me here, old man. How about it? Not too shabby an idea, yeah? I don't want to hear that from you. First of all, that sort of thing shouldn't even be called concern or a calculating move. What if your planning was off? There's a possibility that I'd just draw my blade without thinking the consequences. Nah, you'd never do that, old man. You're too decent for that. Well, decent guys, they always consider fear. I've come to know many various people with a screw loose until now, and you'd never be like 'em, old man. Go down. Saying all it had to say, everything it pleased, the divine dragon's oracle caused Heinkel's mouth to gape open and close, unable to form an immediate refuge, yeah, refutation, or refutation. Sorry. Only the reasons for his ears flashing a bright red was it anger or embarrassment. In the case of the former, then the fact that he did not begin shouting curses without thinking about the consequences was in accordance with the divine dragon's expectations. Plus, my phone moved for a minute. In the case of the latter, and the fact that he had an idea of what he was being chitted about was in accordance with the divine dragon's expectations. Okay, it's doing it. In other words, the moment his ears flushed red, Hanko's defeat was set in stone. Me? Decent, you say? Pressing his finger into his head with greater strength, Heinkel's voice rasped at the divine dragon's evaluation. Speaking of raspy voice, I think I need a drink. I forgot my camera's up there. I looked over there and it's not there. It's up there. Alrighty, we are running low on this already. Crazy. We're not even close to the end, are we? Unless. Nope. No, we are not. We're probably halfway, but that's still halfway. Decent, considering Heinkel's current position. It was far too ironic of an appraisal. What the hell was the divine dragon thinking? Would a decent person fall to the extremities of self-centeredness, turning traitor against their country? Heinkel was neither decent nor honest. He was not worthy of an appraisal that expressed such virtue, uh, ubiquitously earned by many townspeople. That's why, when Miss Priscilla passed away, went along with Aldebaran's proposal. Intervening in the national crisis befalling the Wallachian Empire, Priscilla Burial had lost her life. Heinkel was in a position such that, no matter what, he could never say that he pledged loyalty to her. Ooh, excuse me. His relationship with her had been a cooperative one, born of shared interests. Even that, with how things were now, Heinkel would never know just how much value Priscilla saw in him. Only, though Heinkel had not pledged his loyalty to Priscilla, neither did he doubt her capacity as a ruler to win the throne, guiding the people of the kingdom as their new monarch. With outstanding capabilities, the wisdom to see ahead, and a beautiful appearance, all fine attributes befitting a queen. Let's go down a little bit more. There. Priscilla possessed the qualifications to become the Queen of Lugunica. Upon the dawn of her ascendance to the throne, he was supposed to have received a license to a dragon's blood as his reward. That hope had been whittled in the empire alongside Priscilla's life. From the bottom of his heart, he found it unfortunate. The fact that he had been unable to secure the dragon's blood, and the fact that Priscilla's rule over the kingdom of Lugunica never came to fruition. Thus, having lost all of hope, the stricken Heinkel was proffered a hand by Aldebaran. In exchange for assisting him, becoming an enemy of the world, he could obtain the dragon's blood. To Heinkel's ears, the proposal rang far too sweet. The hope that he was supposed to have obtained, seeing it ripped away right before his eyes, was harsh. Moreover, this was the second time for Heinkel, the second time the light of hope was extinguished, right when he was but a step away. The first time, he had missed his chance due to a foolish mistake, and the accompanying feeling of helplessness was difficult to forget. Hence, this time, Heinkel would absolutely cling to any wretched possibility. For him to be decent was extremely off base from the divine dragon. Has your husband filled with displeasure again? This may be coming from me, but there's nobody who would love a difficult, who would love a difficult middle-aged man, yeah? It's too late for that sort of thing. You're sure to complicate things, don't you now? Well, it's seriously, it's seriously like a boomerang, so I won't say anything more. Even with just a simple gesture of shrugging its shoulders, the divine dragon's body was far too exaggerated. In that eerily human gesture, Heinkel found a certain uh, commonality, with Aldebaran, and ignored the increasing pain of his headache at the insecurability. To not be loved by anyone, that was exactly what Heinkel desired. A drink? Fuck, this is a long time. It's not as long as like the one we did for the first time, but this is gonna be a long one. That said, if we go off my estimate for how long chapters typically are, this is 7,000 words. That's roughly, doing the math in my head, 1 hour 45 minutes. So it technically would be like another hour. Well, actually, I guess it'd be closer to 45 minutes, but something like that. Also depends on the rate of us reading it. Okay. Back in we go. All right. That he had not been loved once. He was he was not such a fool to make any such warped, careless remarks. Heinkel had been loved from birth, and there was no shortage of people who had loved him since. And not only did he fail to repay the affection that he had been directed towards him, he betrayed it, marching through the rank. Come to think of it, we never really get this sort of one-on-one time. And I remembered that there were some things I wanted to check with you, old man. Can you just be quiet and wait? I'm the type who can't bear silence. Might be because I was always with someone who never stopped talking. He was completely ignorant regarding how the Divine Dragon operated, but the other party had not spoken much about it, and Heinkel was not eager to know. Either way, once this was all over, this was an individual who he would have died, or who he would have died in order to procure its heart's blood. There was no need to get out of his way to add any reasons to feel guilt for doing so. Or to go out, sorry. Uh, Besides, though consideration might have been the reason, he was grateful for the flow of the conversation to shift from what it had been to that point, where they discussed another topic that perhaps his headache might fade a bit. So, most esteemed Divine Dragon Sama, what was it that you wanted to ask me? It's nothing too important, but you're excessively sturdy, right, old man? So I was wondering if you have any idea why you're so sturdy. Huh? Did I do something? Go down. At the Divine Dragon's innocent words, Heinkel ground his teeth in annoyance. The pain in his head intensifying, which served as proof that Heinkel's plan from a moment ago had failed. He had hoped for the focus of the conversation to change. This was evidence that it had not. Hushed in silence, Heinkel looked down at his open palm and sighed. The Divine Dragon's query had been in regards to Heinkel's body. Of course, that was his own body. He was aware of its abnormality, and was properly aware of the reasons for it. Among the many sins Heinkel had committed, this was punishment for an especially grave one. One Astraea's unwakeable slumber. Including Heinkel, that was undoubtedly the beginning of the Astraea family's division, but more decisive had been the events of 15 years prior. In the midst, of Teresa Van Astraea's deployment to the subjugation of the White Whale, transfer of the divine protection of the Sword Saint, resulted in the change of Sword Saint and Teresa's death. Serving as that impetus to all of that was the abduction of Royal Prince Ford Lagunica's esteemed daughter, which the implication of which seems to be felt. The night of the incident, Heinkel had perpetrated an unforgivable betrayal, the worst possible mistake that had made his betrayal meaningless. The divine punishment bequeathed was the current Heinkel. I've got no reason to deliberately reveal that to you. Oh, you're really saying that? In that case, if you don't tell me, I'll report to the other me that you were being uncooperative, old man. Annulling that promise you guys had. What if I threaten you like that? You? I'm kidding, just kidding. There's probably 50 or 100 things that you don't want to say. You and me both, old man. 100 things. That's a lot. The Divine Dragon made small talk that could not be perceived as anything small. Heinkel feebly responded with just that. It had been, it had said 50 or 100 things, but the things Heinkel harbored could be counted on a single hand, and that single hand was already heavy enough to crush his fragile self. Even so, connecting that which had been fractured, dragging along that which had been tensed, just a little bit more, if he had continued a little longer, then finally, uh, what is it? Perceiving a slight change in the atmosphere, Heinkel questioned the Divine Dragon. For a moment, hesitating on whether to regularly call it Volcanica or not, he ultimately settled with an, I feel like I should know how to say it, but we're just gonna keep going. But paying no heed to Heinkel's indecision, the Divine Dragon took a nosedive, facing downwards below the clouds towards the world capital. And then, okay, yeah, so this is where the whole thing I felt is gonna be. Oh, I'll take a drink. Because this is probably when it's gonna get tense. That's probably when it's gonna get real huge. All right. Yeah, a little bit more. We are running low. All right. Hold on tight, old man. Go. The next moment, as a windstorm seemed to push down on him from above, slammed Heinkel down onto the Divine Dragon's back as if he were prostrating himself. Without even the time to catch his breath from the sudden impact, the divine dragon descended in one fell swoop, with Heinkel affixed to its back, piercing into the royal capital's skies. Their act of lurking above the clouds to conceal themselves while Aldebaran was raiding the prison tower came to naught. That was to say, the need to reveal themselves had been born. In such a manner, the divine dragon arrived at their destination with such speed that Heinkel had not even been able to lift his head. With a swing of its unruly dragon forearm, a hole was perforated through the wall of the building alongside an intense sound of destruction. The reason the target of that exceedingly sudden violent outburst were entirely unknown to him. Only the building on the receiving end of the Divine Dragon's calamitous strike was ruthlessly demolished, dragon claws thoroughly crushing everything inside. Gotta be kidding me! That was the voice of absolute shock, spilling from the mouth of the Divine Dragon who perpetrated that merciless act of destruction. Sharpening its golden eyes, the Divine Dragon surveyed the interior of the building it had thrown its arm into. Faced with the result of its relentless demolishment, it expressed its astonishment. It was only natural. The Divine Dragon's claws, tougher and sharper than most of the blades in this world, had been severed, torn off, and reduced to dust. And as for the one who had done that, esteemed father, taking a stance with their twin swords in the half-destroyed building, was the being who had just fended off the Divine Dragon's claws, the sword demon, Wilhelm van Estre. Motherfucker. What fucking juice did he drink for the past, like, 60 years or something? Like, okay, it makes sense, right? He fought Teresia and won, right? But it's like, dude, he fought the Divine Dragon, right? Something that, like, the witches, like Sloth, for example, like Sekhmet, was bullying, right? But that's Sekhmet, right? Like it'd be crazy if she couldn't, right? But that's somebody like that high up was bullying, and he just gets in, like, it comes crashing through, sudden attack, no, you know, expectation of whatever it may be, and just shing, and all of them, like all the claws come up. I had to sit. I'm gonna be off camera a little bit. I just, whew, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Whew. Dude, he is 60. Fuck. Dude, this motherfucker is cracked. Right? And he's like human. Right? There's like excuses you could make if, like, anything. This is a regular human man that was just in the fucking, like, military, essentially. Right? Like he was alongside a whole bunch of other people. Dude, this is like making me think that there is a chance Wilhelm could die at some point. Because, like, there's no fucking way you can keep a dude like this around. Right? There is no fucking way you keep a guy like this around in a story and don't just off him. Right? I could be fucking wrong. Maybe it's just like, yeah, it's really fucking cool. By all means, it's really fucking cool. I'm just saying. That's something where it's like you see this and it's like, dude, at some point he's gonna die, right? He's gonna join Priscilla, because Priscilla's another great example. Priscilla had all sorts of shit, and yeah, she's young, but she had all sorts of shit. So it's like, oh yeah, she dies, and it's like, fair enough, right? But it's like, fuck. I could also make examples of, other series out there, but I feel like that's like actual spoiler, like, sort of territory, whereas at least this is contained because we're talking about Arc 9. So, but like, fuck, dude. I need another drink. Fuck. Uh, Wilhelm van fucking Astrea. Holy shit. Alright. I'm gonna assume it's him. My thanks. Parrying the dragon's claws, barely managing to repel them as both his arms went numb. Let me just double check where we are. We are actually approaching the end now. Wilhelm proclaimed his gratitude to Felt, who had informed him of the looming. She didn't even finish. She said, N away. He didn't even take that warning. He didn't even hear that warning and go, I should back off. It's the fucking Germa thing. It's the he's like running like I should, or like I'm told to run away. I should back off. No, it's just sorry for pushing the mic there, but like that dude fucking went in. He was told run away, and he's like, oh, there's an attack coming, and just he immediately knew. Oh, oh, fuck. The fucking sun's getting in my face there and turning me into like a fucking vampire. Like pure white. Holy shit. Okay. Oh. I'm like still taking that. Like, fuck, dude. Okay. The thread bound to her neck, Felt had been hung in the air. Whilst in a situation in which her own life had been in danger, she had nevertheless commanded Wilhelm to ready himself, rather than seek his help. Thanks to her, he had managed to take a defensive stance by the skin of his teeth. Nah, normally that ain't something you can stop even if you react in time. I agree, Owl Dragon. Excuse me. Uh, and in regards to Wilhelm's deep emotions, the one to raise their voice was the enormous body standing outside the manor. A presence so fearsome and mystical that many would prostrate themselves upon merely laying eyes on them, an individual harboring absolute power. The imposing form of the divine dragon Volcanica had been peering into the mansion from outside. I don't know why I did it like that. It felt but really old man. Cough, cough. I'm in agreement with that dragon. I told you to run away, yeah, and not to get him. Ugh. Of all things for Felt to have said in her violent coughing fit, she expressed agreement with Volcanica's opinion. Taking advantage of the chaos of the dragon claws, she had released from her midair suspension. No, Wilhelm's eyes had grasped the events that had come to pass in an even more accurate fashion. It's no coincidence that Felt had been saved without a hand from Wilhelm. Cannot be. You came to save Felt Summer? It's tough to say yes or no given our positions, but if I went and said yes here, would Felt Chen then be publicly considered a member of our team of traitors? They aren't my allies, but there's no doubt that it came flying in to save me. All the way down. With a faint, lingering sensation of having been hanged, Felt responded so as she rubbed her neck. No refutation came from Volcanica's end either. It seemed that through some means, Dragon had sensed Felt's predicament and had flown to this place in order to rescue her. In other words, the shinobi girl had aimed that far ahead in attaching a thread to Felt's neck. Be that as it may, it appears to be a sore spot for people in question. After all, the fact that you have come here would mean can't go to back up the me or to back up the me over there. Indeed. Incidentally, your manner of speech has altered quite a bit. Compared to 40 years ago when I merely captured a glimpse of you, you are almost a completely different person. No, a different dragon. There's a saying that goes, if you don't see a man for 3 days, 40 years is a, or yeah, if you don't see a man for 3 days, 40 years is a hell of a long time. Summer can work real magic on girls, Grandpa. I see. Summers do that. Uh, for those words had been given in response, or those words have been given in response. was not an answer that provided him an understanding of Volcanicus' change. Only, Wilhelm had not the time to investigate that change in demeanor here. There were things to prioritize over that. In its intrusion, Volcanica had not been by their lonesome. It seemed the dragon was carrying another upon its back, with their mouth to have remained without use up until this point. Concealing their presence had not been with the intent of catching Wilhelm off guard, but rather, are you unable to show your face even before me, Heinkel? At Wilhelm's call, the other party recoiling could be felt through the atmosphere. Yeah, actually, that's the end of the sentence. Even if he lowered his head, stifled his voice, and endeavored to conceal his presence, Wilhelm had already been made aware that Heinkel was among those complicit with Al, who had become a traitor opposing the kingdom. Al's actions were already more than enough of a threat to the survival of the kingdom. To not swing his sword amidst the critical situation was an impossibility for Wilhelm, former commander of the royal guard as he was. Even without such underlying circumstances, the reason as to why Wilhelm had resolved himself to take initiative and take up the sword was Heinkel's presence. In rough terms, you have been told that you will be lent dragon's blood if you cooperate, yes? Through those means, you intend to awaken your wife, Luana, correct? In that case, your discretion has been far too lacking. Drink. It's good. This is good. All right. Back in. Stored in the royal castle, the dragon's blood certainly housed tremendous power. The power of the kingdom's greatest treasure, even awakening Luana Astrea, slumbering for reasons unknown, is entirely possible. However, you believe that Aldono, no, that the turncoat known as Al will keep to his word? The individual betrayed those left behind by the master he served, Brasilia Burial Summa, and is even attempting to cause a stir by deceiving those who had worried about him. Why in the world would he grant your desires alone? Nah, well, I get that it might be dubious, but that's way too one-sided. Exalted Dragon of Lagunica, I'm not speaking to you at the moment. Fuck. Ugh. As Wilhelm displayed an attitude and words that left it no place to interject, Volcanica felt silent with him. Towards the other side of the hush dragon, to the person hiding on its back, he resumed. What is the matter? Unable to say a word? Perhaps I have hit the nail on the head, or perhaps you have not considered it. I suppose that is right. For a long time already, you will do nothing but avert your face, plug your ears, and run away from anything you found unpleasant. That is why even now, you do not even attempt to look at anything other than what is convenient for you. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Anything you please. You just say anything you fucking please, don't you? No matter what I may do for Luana, you've got no right to say anything about it, father. With blood-curdling bellow, a silhouette rose up from Volcanica's back. I almost said Heinkel's back. Heinkel and Mini Heinkel. A face he knew, a voice he recognized, and the temper of a trembling finger thrust towards him. Wilhelm deeply sighed, with a sigh consisting of exasperation and disappointment, as well as a faint relief. There were various reasons for that relief. One being whether he would still have any fighting spirit left to raise his face after being spoken to so insultingly. Another being whether he would attempt to lay low as a coward while cooperating with a traitor. But what could be said on the whole? So, you have finally shown your face. Well then, have you no objections other than shouting noisily? Is your reason for supporting that man in accordance with my guesswork? If that is the case, can you not think of why he would grant your desires alone? Have you worn yourself out by wishing, causing your eyes to cloud over? I am... As Wilhelm piled on the questions, silhouette on the dragon's back, Heinkel hung his head. Whether that explosive temper of his, from a moment prior, might have gone, it was easy to tell that he was dejected, and the act of Heinkel shrinking before Wilhelm was not something that he had only begun now. Such had been the case for a long, long time already, ever since he had taken his vows to become a knight, and had been granted Wilhelm's former beloved sword, Astrea. Uh, there's no doubt, I was saying that like I was Wilhelm, felt once again old man. There's no doubt that Pops is aiming for the dragon's blood with the objective of waking up his sleeping wife. In place of Heinkel, unable to form words with his eyes cast down, it was Felt who answered Wilhelm's question. Lowering her hand from rubbing her neck, Felt strained her back. Despite being the most powerless person present, she wore an expression that gave no such impression whatsoever. I mean, technically, Ye's the one who's really powerless right now, but I heard it straight from his mouth, though I haven't heard all the details. No, I thank you for your answer in my incompetent son's stead. Furthermore, I'm sorry that you had to go along with such a dialogue. Quick drink, because I can feel it. I can really feel it. Ah, all right. I don't need any backward apologies. I told this to Pops as well, but it's simply a matter of his methods being different to mine. It's got nothing to do with them being good or bad. Despite having been embroiled and having suffered damages herself, there was no anger in Felt's response. From that dignified way of looking at things, Wilhelm certainly saw the capacity to be a monarch within her. Fair, her and Amelia, I feel like, are the big ones. Unmistakably, Felt, like Krush, was one of the 5 individuals selected by the Dragon History Stone. And despite that, for that very divine dragon to be obstructing the way like this, uh, yeah, I was going to mention it's kind of funny to mention 5 because at this point, but it makes sense. Yeah, they were the 5 chosen. It's not like it's 5 as in, yeah, all 5 are still around, but yeah. There would have been, or there would have already been many bearing witness to the sight of you having descended to the surface, mercilessly swinging your claws. Foundations of the Dragon Kingdom are shaking. Have you awareness of that? Yeah, I feel a bit. Oh, interestingly, it does specify Volcanica. It doesn't even mention. Oh, feel a bit bad from the very bottom of my heart. But you see, even if the Dragon Kingdom reverts to being the Lion Kingdom, it'd still be way better than the complete destruction of the world. Although, I believe this rebellious spirit of yours is a matter of concern grave enough to be on par with the world's destruction. At the very least, there was no doubt that the violent tremors would run through the kingdom of Lagunica in the near future. Those tremors would likely cause the or jeopardous foundations of the kingdom to fissure, and those emergent cracks would likely swallow many. Even supposing the actions of Volcanica and the other traitors were for the purposes of opposing something that eclipsed even that. Go a little bit further. Even if an anonymous, I don't know why I said it like that. Even if an anomalous dragon is among them, that is not a situation for a mere few people to decide, especially given that one of those few people is yet experienced, unable to see anything beyond their own feet. There is no salvation to be had for you lot. When including this exalted dragon, wouldn't it be a miraculous oracle from the heavens? In that case, as you once did before, right now, at this moment, please save the many people who are struggling through the pain. And then, furthermore, given the greater amount of people it contains, you ought to save the entire world. If you are unable to do so, if I'm unable, then I shall have no other choice but to consider you the same as my foolish son, puppeted by sweet words. Stating thus, Wilhelm held his twin swords at the ready, squaring off against the divine dragon Volcanica. Fuck. The numbness that had risen from repelling the first strike had faded from his hands. But if there was an example of a volley, merely 3 more exchanges would suffice in wresting his sword away from him. Either evasion or parrying to much to a much higher degree. Don't move, little Miss Felt. I'm not confident in being able to have such a soft touch on this. Maybe I shouldn't listen to anything you say. Ever since Ramji tried to pull wool over my eyes, I've had plenty of resentment built up. If that is the case, then I apologize for any inconvenience it may cause you for the time being. Stop acting like you're on friendly terms with me. Shouting in anger, Felt scowled at Wilhelm and Volcanica in turn, sticking out her tongue. Further down, spraying a minimal amount of his focus upon her, Wilhelm observed every single action of Volcanica. Their position, likewise, was that of having rushed to the shinobi girl's rescue. With their figure having been sighted already, before long the commotion would magnify, and their freedom to fight would be limited. This too would be a short yet decisive bout. Quick drink. A little bit more. Ah. Again, I feel like it's just because it's hot out that I'm enjoying. Just, it's nice. Technically, even if decayed, I'm a dragon of legend. Yeah, shouldn't you be looking into options other than fighting? Unfortunately, I was just thinking that now is the time in which I must once more surpass a legend. My dearest apologies for making use of this convenience, but please endure my company. Volcanico's intimidation was met with Wilhelm's response. It was apparent to the latter that Heinkel, having not spoken a word for a good while, had his breath hitched, had his cheeks stiffened, eyelids trembling unceasingly. Heinkel's azure eyes regarded Wilhelm in bewilderment. Father, you don't mean... Heinkel, having seemingly realized something, Wilhelm shut both his eyes at once. Before Volcanica, that was far too recklessly defenseless an act. Yet, the trust that his opponent would not take advantage of that opportunity was a sense mutually shared through their fighting spirits. Surrendering his being to that sense, upon the back of his closed eyes, Wilhelm's remorses were envisioned. An overcast sea, a headstone marking a vacant grave, bereft of any contents, great multitude of attendants overcome with dissolution, the words of His Majesty the King, exalting the act of sacrifice for their duty, the son not present where he ought to have been, and his weak self devoid of the willpower to bring him there. And at last, oh shit. I mean, I assume this is a flashback thing, but it's all right, honored grandfather. When she passed, honored grandmother wasn't the sword saint. That's why the sword saint didn't lose. After all, the sword saint shouldn't ever lose. Father said so. So don't be sad. The Stray family is safe and sound, honored grandfather. Nothing but the words of a child. Words lacking any malice from a child who had just inherited the qualifications to unsheath the dragon sword alongside the divine protection. Fuck, the fact that he... Oh, I mean, I know it's like that he is just literally a child, but the fact that he refers to him like that, oof, that is rough. Okay. Words lacking any malice, yeah. Recollecting in great detail the remorses of that day, Wilhelm batted his eyes, or eyelids open, and gazed at the dragon, at the divine dragon, its name writ in legend, once the savior in the kingdom, as it had attested itself. Let's double check we're okay. With the kingdom facing an existential threat, with the hearts of many in turmoil, the imprudence was well within his awareness. However, akin to the saving of the kingdom, of the world, Wilhelm possessed an important duty he had needed to fulfill through his sword. Important duty, one impossible to fulfill with any means but the sword. Naught else did Wilhelm know. Not but the way to return the sword saint to being human. Henceforth, for this blade of his, he sought swordsmanship akin to which he had held in the past. Nay, swordsmanship greater than even that, and challenged the dragon. All for the sake of surpassing the legend that eclipsed legends, awaiting him beyond that point. Sword demon, Wilhelm Trias. Divine dragon, Volcanica. Simultaneously with their declarations, both sprung into action. by Sword's Shimmer and Dragon's Claws, all notions of sound were consigned to oblivion. Fuck. That was good. Oof. That was good. That was a good ass chapter. And that, I didn't consider Nothing But Words of a Child, and that's literally, yeah. Mm, that's good. Make a like that art on Twitter. I like it. Boop. Sick. Alrighty. Oh, good. Good. That was real nice. Ah, that was a strong ass chapter. Let me see what the art looks like for next time. Mmm. That is good. Okay. So we're gonna be in for quite the treat on our next chapter here. Oof. Now, obviously, that's not today. Not tonight. All that. We'll do that Tuesday. And hopefully, that chapter is not too long so that we can do two. Right? I mean, we can do two regardless, but honestly, I'm hoping whatever chapter we have to do Thursday, right? So the next reading session after Tuesdays, I'm hoping that one is relatively short. Because if that one doesn't take too long, we're a-okay. Hell, if we're caught up, right? If we manage to actually like straight up catch up somehow by that point, that's also a win, in my opinion. Because that means we're okay, right? If like the chapter I have to read or whatever, we're good on time and everything, all that, that'll work out great. But this was great. This was real good. I could probably finish this up. Okay, there's a lot more than I thought. Oh, I'll finish it up on the next drink or two. Ooh, that was good. That was a good chapter to return to. I like that. Ooh, I said that twice, but that was strong. That was a really strong job. I always love when Wilhelm gets to be cool because that's the biggest thing, right? When he gets to be cool, it's just awesome, right? Like read, whatever the fuck, because they pronounce it two different ways in two different languages, all that. Um, for example, with him, right? That motherfucker is cool. Like, he's a piece of shit, but like that motherfucker is cool when he gets to do stuff and everything. And it's like it's what got me to enjoy him a fuck ton, right? Similarly, Wilhelm definitely has an old outlook on like certain things in life, like I mean, not necessarily like the worst in that regard, but like there's some aspects where it's like, yeah, you can tell he's definitely like of his time in terms of his logic and everything, with some things, but it's like I do like though when he gets to be cool because he is a really cool character and he's a character driven by love, and that's always something I really enjoy, right? I'm a sucker for that shit, right? I'm a sucker for that stuff in stories, regardless of the story. I like it when it's really good, right? Uh, Honestly, it's why I tend to do it so much with ADT and stuff like that. I just like that shit, right? I think it's fun. Well, like fun in an aspect of like it's something that is nice to have in life, and I'm not just saying that in the respect to, like proper sort of like getting married to somebody and spending your life with them and all that sort of shit. Love, there's love for family, there's love for friends, there's all this sort of stuff. I think love is like a lot wider than that, and I think a lot of people probably understand that, but there's some who might not, right? And it's like just the word itself goes wider than that, and having that detail in there with a character really makes them strong, and having them understand that. It's why I like Fist of the North Star so much, because Fist of the North Star has that about it. All the characters in there, right? Every fucking character in there is driven by that in some way, or tries to like remove it from their body in a certain sense, right? In that certain like metaphorical sense. But like, they later realize like, huh, I did have it all along, or huh, that could have definitely made me stronger if I wasn't being stupid about it, right? I always love that shit, but it's always great to read more with like Wilhelm because of that sort of thing, and I'm seeing him be really cool. That adds to it, right? It's great. Love it a lot. Whew. Okay, well, I guess that's where we're gonna wrap up. We actually wrapped up a little bit. Well, an hour and 30. Actually, I was on the dot. I guess I was right. I really was right. It takes 45 minutes to read 3,000 words and then another 45 for the next. Now, obviously, this was 7,000 words, but we were going really quickly, I would say, overall. Ooh, excuse me. But it was roughly within the same time that I predicted. So, worked out. Alrighty. So, shorter stream today. Apologies on that, peeps. We will be back on Tuesday. But that is my goal right now. Is I'm going to be back on Tuesday. We're going to read more. I'm going to take a break tomorrow. I'm going to keep working on Act 2 teasers and stuff like that. Uh, hopefully, I'm going to say hopefully, you guys get to see those real soon. Um, I can't guarantee it'll be like, this week because it's like I'm probably going to be working on them this week as well, right? But I am hoping before the end of May because we have like, I think, yeah, we have 2 more weeks of May. I can probably do a lot of it within that time. Like, I think teaser wise, we will absolutely be done. Uh, the cover is what I worry about because I'm like, yeah, we are drawing a little close now, and I'm like, the cover is a cover. There's details about it that I'm gonna leave for later, right, and just add on as it goes. But like, I'm like sitting there like, that cover's gonna take a bit. I'm gonna have to dedicate a lot of time to it in a day, like every single day, or I'm gonna have to just suck it up and be like, yeah, we'll go with the literal definition of when spring ends, right? Rather than like the obvious thing you would think of at the end of May, right? We're gonna just go with like June 19. And it's just like, yeah, that's the end of spring, right? So as long as I do it between now and then, but we'll see about that. Regardless, though, I'm gonna head out. So thank you all for joining me, for watching, whatever it may be. Right, we will be back once again on Tuesday. We will try and get 2 chapters done. I am excited to get more done because again, this arc has been really strong and it could be better than arc 5, but we'll see. Right, I'm gonna head out. Probably gonna chill, read some of that more of that Venom comic I was reading. That shit is good. That shit is so good. Most of the comics I've read so far haven't like wowed me too much. They've been fun by all means, but they haven't wowed me too much. This fucking Venom one has like wowed me. Like legitimately, I'm like, holy shit, this is good. But with that said, again, I'm gonna head out. So take care. Have yourselves a great night. Stay safe. And yeah, I will see you all Tuesday. Bye. I have to like wait to end stream because like then sometimes it cuts me off. So hopefully it would never cut me off in the middle of me talking.